I talked earlier about Liberty University, specifically because Liberty University was fined like $14 million for not keeping students safe on campus. And it's possible, in my mind, that Liberty University is asking the Trump administration to undo that. Well, it turns out last year, there was another Christian university that also got hit with a fine. And I made a video on this. It was 2023, not 2024. I made a video about this at the time, but it's worth rehashing some of those details. So this is the headline. U.S. Department of Education, Office of Federal Student Aid fines Grand Canyon University, which is a private Christian school, $37.7 million for deceiving thousands of students. And just look at what it said here in the first couple paragraphs. GCU, which dispersed the most federal student aid of all participating institutions for the past 4 years, they were hit with this fine. Why? Because an FSA investigation found that GCU lied to more than 7,500 former and current students about the cost of its doctoral programs over several years. GCU falsely advertised a lower cost than what 98% of students ended up paying to complete certain programs. GCU lied about the cost of its doctoral programs to attract students to enroll. ... FSA takes its oversight responsibility seriously. GCU's lies harmed students, broke their trust, and led to unexpectedly high levels of student debt. Today, we're holding them accountable. ... So why were they fined? Not because they were Christian. Clearly, it's because, according to the government, they advertise that if you want to get your doctorate from our school, you have to take this many classes, pay this much money, roughly. But in reality, you had to pay way more than they actually said. We actually have evidence of this from the information that was sent by the government to GCU. And I want to show you this chart right here, if I can pull it up. This is an example of what they are talking about. Here we go. Look at this. This is from what the government sent GCU from their investigation. And this is just one example from about 2,000 graduates between 2011 and 2017. They said, you have to take X number of classes to get your PhD. But GCU is making these students take extra continuation courses that made them have to stay on campus longer and pay more money. Look at this. Look at the left side of the chart here. How many continuation courses did you have to take? Look at the very bottom of the list. What percentage of graduates had to take 6 or more extra courses? And it says, what percentage of graduates had to do that? 34.8% of students had to take more than 6 extra courses. It took them 72 more weeks to finish their degree, and it cost them over $12,000. How many students had to take 5 additional classes? 42.9%. It took them 60 weeks. It cost them $10,000. So this goes on. How many students did not have to take any extra classes in order to get their PhD? 1.7%. It's at the very top of that chart. Only 1.7% of the students had to take 0 extra classes. But everyone else had to take more classes and had to pay, in some cases, more than $10,000 more than anticipated. So this is what the government said. We know you're doing this. We have evidence you are doing this. And not only that, the government said you have the tuition cost on your website. You're lowballing it. That's a fake number. They said your enrollment agreement that students have to sign has that lowballed number. You have a calculator on your website so students can get a rough estimate of how much it would cost to go to your school. That uses the lowball numbers. So it's not like they made a mistake on one part of their website. This was all over the place. And they are gouging students out of this money. Here's another example of what they did. This is a page that used to be on their website. I will show you this right here. This is if you want to get a Doctor of Philosophy and General Psychology. And you could look on the side of this page here. How many credits would you need to get? 60. It'll take you about 8 weeks online. You could transfer up to 9 credits. It'll cost you $725 per credit. And by the way, you also have to do your dissertation and whatever else on top of this. But they're saying if you do the math there, it would cost you about $43,000 to get your degree from that school. What they don't tell you on that page is what extra classes, continuation courses you got to take. So like, if you knew that, then maybe you would decide not to go to their school. And the Department of Education wrote, and this is kind of damning, according to the internal emails at your school, I don't know if I can pull this up, but they said internal emails indicate that GCU leadership has been aware since at least January of 2017 that its disclosures regarding cost were incomplete or misleading. So the leadership at this school knew for years they were lying to students about the actual costs of their degrees if they're getting these doctorates, right? And so they said, GCU's argument is we didn't lie about this. You could totally read about the actual costs in the fine print and other documents. And the government's like, no, you cannot pawn this off on read the fine print. It should be front and center. And so they said, we are making you pay a fine of $37.7 million. And they said GCU has to stop lying about the cost of its doctoral degrees. And they have to hire a monitor to make sure that the school is complying with the law, right? And the reason they were allowed to do all this, like how can the government go after a Christian school for lying? I mean, they lie about a lot of things. But the reason they could do it is because GCU uses federal funds. They get over $1.1 billion in Title IV funding, which is federal financial aid. So the Department of Education has every right to make sure those funds are being used as intended. And if students are taking out loans to go to GCU, but then they're having to pay way more than they anticipated, that's leaving students worse off because they might be in debt because they did not calculate for those additional costs. That means they will have to take out more loans. It's not a good use of their money because they couldn't plan for that. According to the report from the Department of Education, more than $18 million in federal funds had been given to 1,344 students in their doctoral programs just in the past year. And over 7,500 students had gone through that program since 2018, and they had to pay over $122 million in tuition. And so the fact that this school was only being fined $37.7 million, based on what the government could have fined them, it could have been over $500 million. They could have fined the school $509 million. Instead, they went with $37.7 million. And that's the last we heard of the school saying the school owes this fine. Now, GCU responded to all this by saying, how dare you come after us? This is from October of 2023. GCU categorically refutes the Department of Education's lies and deceptive statements. This is after the Department of Education announced the fine. GCU categorically denies every accusation, every one of them, in the Department of Education statement. Further evidence of the coordinated and unjust actions. They're accusing the government of coordinated and unjust actions the federal government is taking against the largest Christian university in the country. Their response was, you're coming after us because we're Christian. It's like, no, did you read their report? They're going after you because you don't know how numbers work. And you're lying about the numbers. But GCU is like, you're persecuting us. Why would you do this? Like, there was nothing anti-Christian taking place. But anyway, since that time, since October of 2023, the school has appealed the fine while insisting they did nothing wrong. They actually said, well, a state-run agency did an audit and they're still working with us, as if that counters anything they did. The audit had nothing to do with the doctoral programs. And the president of the school kept saying there are no student complaints about the fees, which is also not true because it turns out students have since filed a class action lawsuit against the school saying they were victims of the price gouging. And that lawsuit is still ongoing. So all they had to do, all GCU had to do this whole time to fix this whole problem, hear me out here, is tell the truth. Just tell students how much it costs to get a doctoral degree from your school. That's it. Put that on your website. Don't hide it in the fine print. Don't exclude it from some charts. Like, don't act like Ticketmaster with hidden fees. Just tell everybody up front how much it costs for the average student to finish your degree. And again, going back to that chart I showed you at the very beginning, if 98% of students are paying more money for those continuing courses than you are saying it costs to get this degree, you are not telling people the correct amount of money it'll cost. Seems pretty obvious. But GCU did not want to do that. They just want to lie to everybody, and they feel like hiding behind a shield of Christianity is going to protect them from any further scrutiny. And why am I saying all this now? Because it turns out that was a good bet on their part, unfortunately. Last week, Grand Canyon University posted something on their website, and let me show you what it says. Here's the headline. U.S. Department of Education rescinds record fine with prejudice, meaning they can't come after us again against GCU. Look at this. In a joint stipulation of dismissal order issued by the Education Department's Office of Hearings and Appeals, the Education Department, this is the one now run by Linda McMahon, the wrestling lady, they dismissed the case with no findings, fines, liabilities, or penalties of any kind. The Education Department confirmed it has not established that GCU violated any Title IV requirements, including the claim that we substantially misrepresented the cost of its doctoral programs, ... The dismissal stated unequivocally that there are no findings against GCU or any of its people, and no fine is imposed. And the president of GCU says the fine dismissal is welcome news, but he's not surprised. The facts clearly support our contention that we were wrongly accused of misleading our doctoral students, and we appreciate the recognition that those accusations were without merit. So yeah, I mean, the bottom line here is the Trump administration said, yeah, we saw the work that the Biden administration did to lay out the case for why they're coming after you, and we're just going to throw that in the garbage because that's how Republicans work. That's it. We don't care if you're screwing over students. Mind you, the Department of Education now is not saying GCU did not do anything wrong. They're just saying we're just erasing history and pretending like we never investigated you in the first place. So the Education Department says we have not established you did anything wrong. They're not saying we investigated it and found that you didn't do anything wrong because it turns out the facts were incorrect or anything. No. They're not doing anything like that. They're just saying, yeah, that was a Biden thing, but we're Trump administration people. We're Republicans. So if your Christian school wants to fuck over students, we're cool with that because that's what Jesus wanted us to do. So they just rescinded the fine. And now the president of the school is pretending that he is absolved from doing anything wrong. That's not what the Department of Education said, but it's just more Christian grifting. Like they don't care about this. So here's the thing. Legally, this means the school does not have to pay the fine. That doesn't necessarily mean they did nothing wrong. It just means the Republican government is looking the other way. Shouldn't surprise anybody that the Trump administration does not care about schools that screw students out of money. That's how Trump University worked. So just because no punishments will be levied by the Education Department does not undo the basic math of how much the courses cost compared to how much the school said they cost. And the school is pretending it never did anything wrong. But like, all this means is conservative Christians are considered above the law in this administration. That's the takeaway here. You can screw over students all you want, and as long as you're a Christian school, Republicans will look the other way. But like, if you're an Ivy League school, because Ivy Leagues represent smarter students, and in Republicans' mind, that's the elite, even though like half the Republican Congress people went to those schools. But they're like, we'll come after you because we just don't like what you're teaching or what you're allowing on your campus. And by the way, I'm not even just saying that out of nowhere, because as I said in a story from earlier, when Pam Bondi held her meeting for the Trump administration's anti-Christian bias task force, one of the groups that spoke, or one of the people who spoke, was that representative from Liberty University. And check this out from a story about that meeting. Was it last month? I think it was last month. Liberty University Provost Scott Hicks spoke against record high education department fines issued against the two biggest Christian colleges in the country, Liberty and Grand Canyon University. Remember, why was Liberty fined? Because students were not safe on campus because Liberty wasn't following the law. Why is Grand Canyon University fined? Because they were lying to students about how much it cost to get a degree on their campus. And according to this guy speaking at the anti-Christian bias meeting, neither case directly involved the school's Christian convictions, but each one of them maintained it received unfair treatment from the Biden administration, which is just plain bullshit. Biden's administration did not go after them because they were Christian. They went after them because they were receiving federal funds and making students less safe and less secure with their money. That's why the Biden administration went after them, because they had a job to do, and that's how you do that job. And these Christians are like, you went after us because we love Jesus. And in the case of Grand Canyon University, as I just showed you, that fine has been taken away. And as I mentioned with Liberty University, their fine, because they wouldn't keep students safe from sexual predators on campus, that has not been rescinded, but not yet. Like, maybe it will be very soon. I expect that to happen very soon. It's just utterly infuriating how horrible all these people are. I will say, I just want to reiterate one other thing, which is that a couple of students filed a class action lawsuit against Grand Canyon University for screwing them out of their tuition money over this exact situation. And that case is still ongoing. Like, that is not, we haven't heard a ruling on that yet. I will say, the school tried to get that kicked out of court. They tried to get a judge to dismiss the case. And the judge said, no, this lawsuit can definitely continue. That's where we're at right now. So we'll see what the courts say. Because if students say you screwed us out of money, that a judge could say, yeah, you were screwed out of money and Grand Canyon University owes you for that. While the education department under Trump now can totally say, yeah, we know what you did, but we don't care anymore, so we're going to take away our fine. Those are two separate things. We will see if the court case ends up getting GCU in trouble, even if the Republican administration is choosing to look the other way. So infuriating. All right, what questions do we have here? Thanks for that. I wanted to bring this up. This is from Dan. GCU on many occasions has been implicated in intentionally draining veterans' GI funds with bad degree requirements that fail to deliver any results. It's basically stealing from the taxpayer. I don't know that. I'm taking your word on that. But based on what I'm learning about them with what they did with these doctoral students, it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to screw over other students, including GIs, the same way. I mean, it's despicable behavior. I don't know why Republicans don't care about this stuff. They should. I mean, that's the thing I keep hearing from the Christian right, which is, this is what they say to each other. If it's Christian, it ought to be better. And in every single case, it seems, anytime someone says something is Christian, it is so much worse than the secular alternatives, right? Like, Christian movies suck. Christian musicals, they exist. Like church musicals, they suck. Christian schools suck compared to secular alternatives. And they keep pretending like they're being persecuted when they're actually just bad at what they do. They make a mockery of our already very troubled education system here in the United States. Yeah, I mean, it makes it harder for people to get an education when schools that purport to be ethical because they are Christian are the very ones screwing them out of their education. Because you have to imagine there are some people that calculated, okay, I can spend $40,000 to try to get my PhD in something. And then it turns out it's actually $60,000. And they don't have that money. And they can't go into that much debt about it. And then what do? Now it's too late. They either got to finish the degree or they're stuck with a lot of debt and nothing to show for it. And again, who doesn't care about this? Apparently Christians. To be fair, I bet the GOP would support a grift like GCU even if it wasn't a Christian school. Yeah, I mean, all you need is one of those schools to just buy one of Trump's stupid meme coins, and they would probably look the other way for that too. I think as I'm making this live stream right now, Trump is meeting with the people who bought his stupid meme coin, because they'll do anything for the people who give him money personally. You can bribe him. That is the moral lesson of this administration. Bribe Trump all you want. Republicans do not care because they have no ethics as a party. And their voters don't care either. Trump just loves the grift Christians have. I hope that when history looks back on this time with the three historians we will have left, one of the takeaways is that Trump realized that like the Righteous Gemstones should be a documentary, and that's the business he wanted to go into, just duping the most gullible people in the country. And he probably couldn't do it as a church pastor, so he did it as the head of the Republican Party and found it to be way easier. And he used them the way pastors use their flock, and he just took their money. And then he ran with it because he's not doing anything in return for the bribes. He's just taking the money and then running with it. And by the time he's no longer president, like whatever, either his kids continue the family grift or whatever, he's gone. It won't matter anymore. It's a con system at GCU. Study a school before you go. Is this the only school like this? I mean, to answer the first part of that, yes, you should study the school before you go. I do wonder how many of these, this is a question I have with all these Christian schools. There are some students who attend fundamentalist Christian schools like Liberty, Harding, Patrick Henry College. Like, why do they go to these schools where the diploma is worth like toilet paper? A couple reasons. One is they have connections to the sort of jobs you want. Some of those schools are very plugged in to like right-wing politicians. So if you want to work in politics, they can get you an internship there. Some of these schools brag about that. Another reason you might go to the schools, though, and I'm not talking like Brigham Young University where you're brought up thinking this is the school I have to go to because I'm Mormon, but sometimes parents say, I will pay for college, but only if you go to a Christian school. And if you're a high school student trying to get an education, it might make sense to go to a Christian school and get your degree than take out student loans and go to a public university, even if you might be better served that way. I mean, I get why they might go to that school. But if you're just going there because you think, oh, hey, this school, I don't care that it's Christian. I'm going because they offer this degree, and you're not really doing the research you need, unfortunately, no one's looking out for you at that point. The school wants your money. The government under Republican leadership isn't looking out for you. And then what do? I mean, other countries will have affordable education, higher education. We don't. And that means, yeah, it's prime ground to take advantage of people.